Welcome to Polishing Profits by the Profitable Cleaner Network, hosted by Mark Anderson, Sharon Cowan CBSE, and Ed Selkow, seasoned cleaning business owners with over 140 years of success. Learn what works, skip the missteps, and build on proven success.
Hi, and welcome to another astounding, exciting, exuberant Polishing Profits. Yes, I said it.
This is the part that we weren't going to allow you to listen to. However, we have changed our mind.
Right.
We have modified our views. Okay. So you're in.
So thank you, Ed. So we're going to do something a little different for the next few episodes. We're going to go with the old political approach of people want to talk about kitchen table issues. What's a kitchen table, or what are kitchen table issues? Those are issues that affect your ability to raise your family, have a good life, and the things that bring in the money or take away the money in your life that help you live the way you want to live. Those are things that really matter, right down to how you're living, how you're making money, how you're running your company, and how your company is going to grow, that really matter, that y'all talk about on the dinner table. So Sharon, we were just doing a little pre-roll here, and Sharon yelled, "Hey, stop this, run the tape." So I'm running the tape.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can thank Sharon for this, people.
Yes,
Thank Sharon for this.
There's at least one smart person on the panel and better looking in the episode.
Well, it's good content, and I hate to let it go to waste, just jabbering between ourselves when all the other people could hear the jabbering.
Thank God someone's always thinking on this team, and it's not Ed and I. Okay. Sharon, I'm going to let you drift out. You were doing some consulting work. I've been doing some in Ed, and we've been running across the problem this year. And I'm going to let you talk about it in the blind, no names, but you've got a couple of people. And let's lay this out, because I'm sure a lot of people are interested in how do I make that big leap to grow my company and get the right person in place as my second command, whatever the second command is. I'm going to let you go. Set us up.
It's a question I've had many times over the years as companies grow, and you are growing, the company's growing, you personally are growing, but your current admin staff doesn't seem to be able to pick up the pace. They're stuck in, I don't want to say a lower level, a different level of management than what you need to move the company forward. It's like a marriage happen when kids get married at a very young age, and one grows in one direction and the other one grows in the other direction, and they don't meet. At what point in the growth of your company do you need to make a change in that position? And how do you find somebody, and what are the qualities this person needs to truly be your second in command, so you can really spend your time as the visionary, coming up with the plans and the vision for the company, rather than putting out fires, and rather than getting bogged down with human resource issues and drama and all of that distracts you from what you can do. What do you look for in that person? What do you pay that person? And when is the right time for your business to bring on that person and make a change? That's kind of the dilemma that many businesses have as they're in growth spurts.
And about what rate are you finding your customers start really wrestling with this company annual revenue? Because annual revenue drives, support personnel and management personnel.
Well, I think it varies all along the line. The business at $500,000 has to make those same choices. Now, they're not looking for the high-level ops person, but they need to upgrade their support staff. The company at $1 million looks at. I'm finding it at about $1.5 million, $2 million, $3 million, in that area where it takes a different skill set to run that business. It's very different at $2 million than it is at 700,000, or very different at $3 million than it is from $1 million. So anywhere along your business, but I would say the sweet spot for that is maybe $2 million, $1.5 million.
Okay. So part of the problem we were discussing before we jumped on and decided to fire this roll up is, one, if you're a smaller company, you probably have not had these people on a career path to succeed and grow up through. Because Ed, let's just put it under 2 million. You can only get so much talent. You only have so much. Owners got to be paid. You're deciding how you're going to put your foundation together to grow. Okay. So you're looking at all these things. And now all of a sudden you realize I've got some great supervisors. I have some decent people doing quality control, but how do I grow this thing? I can't continue to do everything I'm doing. And the people that I currently have employed don't have the skill sets, to upskill them, to promote them, which is always desirable, promoting from within. We've talked about
Right.
that. We
Right.
will again. But there's a points in your company it can't happen. For the new company, it's I don't have enough people, haven't been around long enough. For the established company, it's a company that gets a $500,000 reward and everybody's all full up. All my
Mhm.
managers, my team's busy. I have to look outside. So it happens even when you get into the 5, 10, you grab a huge company that gives you their business, $1 million company. You're probably, even if you're doing 6 to 10 million, not set up to run that just by promoting somebody out. So this
Right.
but what we're seeing is it's expensive to find someone who could run a company. What have you run into, Sharon? We'll talk about that, Ed. I want to get that. So I want an operations person. I'll make it up. Basically, the white paper says I have an operations person. We're doing about 3 million a year, and I want them to run the entire operation. Basically, you could say an operations director, a manager, maybe a mini GM, where they cover the basic all points of the business. Say they help with sales, marketing, ops. They're involved as like a second in command to the owner. So what's
Yeah.
that person going to cost in most markets that we deal in? Because that
Well, every
gets to be
market is
another problem.
different. Every market is different.
Yeah.
The West Coast is very different from Midwest, but I would say it's going to be a six figure. It's going to be in most markets for that general manager. It's going to be a six figure.
And we're talking 100 to 150 when
100,
we say six
yes.
figures. We're not talking
Oh
$800,000.
no,
Just so the
talking
audience knows.
100 and up. It's going to cost. So I don't know, Ed. What's been your
Well,
experience with that?
this is the beauty of continuously screwing up cleaning companies. Okay, because I survived. I survived through some of them, but I didn't really hit until the fourth one. And by that time, what I understood was that my people were the key. And as far as watching when people came aboard, and I wanted to know and I wanted to see what they were all about, the one thing that I can do anything with is somebody that's loyal. Okay, and that works both ways, which means that I had a little speech that I always gave to the managers. Look, I said, you've never walked into a place and you had a job where you were required to screw up like you are here. Okay. If you're not screwing up, you're not doing anything. Okay. If you're screwing up and you're doing the same screw up over and over and over, that's a
Mhm.
different story. Okay. But you're allowed. I used to have this thing that I taught with 3 circles. This is your responsibility, these 3 circles, and it was staff, client, and staff, client. Just drew a blank. At any rate, it was, what I understood was that was the key, was the people were
Mhm.
the key. And what I wanted was, and I hate to tell you where some of this came from. Some of this came from, some of this is street gang management. Who can I trust?
Yep.
Right. I've run into clients of mine that have had a very loyal next in charge, but still screwing up and costing the company money and costing the company profits because of the continual screw ups. And so that really can't go on. And in one particular case, that person is close to 6 figures and not operating as a skilled operations manager, not a general manager, but just an operations manager. She's not the right person in the right seat. She's very loyal and that counts. And I think a reassignment somewhere within the company where she's more comfortable. She has to feel defeated when the mistakes continue to happen and she's not pulling her weight. So it's not a good situation. So in that situation, it's a little more clear cut. It's time to make a change. But
Yeah.
for most owners, they need to decide.
I had the experience of having to walk in to organizations that were already in an operation, and in the beginning I had to work with whoever was there. Okay.
Right.
But all I wanted to know was, listen, who's got my back? Who's got my back? Okay. And somebody that's got my back at 11 o'clock at night is going to say, Ed, I got this, man. You don't need to be here. Okay.
Well, and you can go home and go to sleep and it's done.
Listen for,
Yeah.
but you got to listen. You got to be, you got to listen,
Absolutely.
but that is the, building it and walking in on it are two completely different things. And
Mhm.
I had some terrible, terrible, terrible experiences with that. Just awful, awful, awful.
Several of the companies I've worked with this year, and a lot of them are all, that's how we got into this conversation earlier today. A lot of the companies we're working with, they are growing, they want to grow, they want the foundation to grow, but let's just say they don't have, let's take this scenario. They don't have the person in place to do it for whatever
Right.
reason. Okay. Right, wrong, or indifferent. So now I have to go out to the market and buy what I need rather than develop it. So I'm finding, Sharon, to your point, that someone that can run at least $2 to $3 million worth of business and allow the owner to do other things and be involved in ops, whether it's sales and marketing, networking, whatever they want to do, it's going to cost you loaded about 100, 125 minimum to get somebody in the door. And I've just gone through this with about 3 or 4 clients as they've been hiring people at this level. They're in major markets now. We're not talking about something way outside a large metropolitan area.
Right.
And I'm talking East Coast, I'm talking West Coast, I'm talking Midwest. It's all about to get somebody that even has the talent that you hope you can develop and grow is going to cost you that. So now you've got an owner sitting there. You haven't had this expense. What do? And I'd said, what dawned on me later on after Ed made more mistakes than I did, but I made my share. I just made them with the same company over and over again for 40 years. And Ed had 4 companies.
I got paid to screw each one up. I got to sell them.
Yeah, I didn't get paid. I just kept screwing it up and fixing it. Okay.
I got the check.
But yeah, I didn't get the check till the end after 40 years, but no complaints there. But we looked at, and I had a business partner then, and we realized that we said, where do we get the money to pay this person? We're already at budget. I mean, we're already at the lowest profit we want to take right now. And the answer was quite simple, and people don't want to hear it. And it will come many times in your business till you get a certain size. There's a time that the escalation of owner's salary or what they make has to become sacrificed to get and have enough money to attract the right people to bring them in. And I can remember many occasions where we decided the owners weren't going, and we weren't getting filthy rich, don't get me wrong. I mean, we would like to have had the money, or we'd like to have the bonuses. We had to put it back in the company, and we had to put it back in the way to get the right people on the right bus and the right seats, to use good to great, okay? And that or go borrow the money. Well, good Lord, no one wants to borrow money on somebody they don't know. That's a horrible bet. I'd rather bet on, running Buddy in the 4th at the Belmont that has 2 crippled legs than that. It's on 100 to 1. So, but there are times that you have to give up what you have financially to afford to bring in the talent that you want. And that's even the same when you're growing your talent. If you're growing your talent from within and you've got somebody you're moving up supervisor, they do pretty good, they're kind of assistant manager, and they need more money, and you're out at the tip of your budget, you look to the owners. If you're bringing in sales like crazy and stuff, it's another answer.
See, that's the key. Bringing in sales.
It's the key. But if you're not, let's just say you're growing normally, then you have to fund it. And you always have to be willing to pay your staff what the market will bear. I'm a firm believer in this.
Right.
If the market's paying 100, you got to pay 100 to get the equivalent, because they're not going to work for you. You're going to get the people who say, well, I can go over to this cleaning company or to this service company and get this. So you have to be competitive, and you have to fish in the same part of the lake where the fish are and use the right bait. And if you're baiting that thing with 70, you're not going to get a whole lot. And honestly, like I said, I've been listening to this all year across the nation, left to right. So and there again, we're going to get back to, we just did a series on how do you know how to do this? You have a budget and you have a plan. We just talked about finances, sales, marketing, all this goes together. But the toughest thing is, how do I get that person if I haven't developed them? And as you're smaller, it's tough to have anybody in your team that's going to develop into your second in command. It really is. You don't have the money, and you have to do a lot of the work that they would be doing because you're paying yourself to do that work. You're taking that salary as the owner's salary. So it gets to be real dicey, and you have to look at it. But there's a time you just have to grin and bear it, in my mind, and pony up and pay the money. And if it means less profit or less owners, that's my thought, Sharon.
And figuring out the timing of this. When is the right time to do it? And one of the exercises I have my folks do is just sit down with some quiet time and do an analysis of, if I don't make this change and I keep on the track as I am now, what does my company look like at the end of the next year? If I do make this change, what does that scenario look like? So you play good cop, bad cop, so to speak, as to find out what's in it for you in terms of, if I do it, what's going to happen if I don't do it? What's the upside or the downside of making that change?
And I thought of something while you were talking. This is the president's calling for Ed again.
Yes, the president's always calling for Ed.
No,
Coming up.
there's a new grandbaby up in Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
That's more important than the president.
Yeah. Number 10.
Oh my God. That's phenomenal. Congratulations.
The Ed Selkow compound community.
Yeah.
He's looking for property now.
I've got some property in North Carolina I could sell you. Could build a nice lodge.
That's where my daughter is. My daughter's up there, and they're gonna put a tiny house on there. They got a
Where?
big piece of land up in North. I couldn't tell you where. They're not too far from the coast.
Okay.
They're not too far from the coast.
We're the other side by the mountains. Western.
Right.
So that was good. That was good news.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get when you dial in here.
Yeah.
And now I've lost my train of thought because I'm thinking about the grandbaby.
Well, we're talking about when is the timing right and analyzing what's best for your company and what does it look like. Maybe it's something you do 6 months out. Maybe you put it on your plan for by year end, you're going to do it. But you have to analyze. You have to sit and think, what are the pros and cons?
Having walked through, I'm not even sure I helped at times, but having walked through this with several clients, you have to remember one key thing, and I heard this from an accounting professor, but it goes for anything. Paper doesn't refuse ink, and everybody looks good on paper, and everybody puts more on it than they can really do. And then you assume that they can do all that, and you get a bit blinded by your need, and you put a lot of assumptions they can do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the assumption of knowledge. Just because I wrote it on the paper, I can do it. Or just because I did it for the last firm, I can do it for yours. We fall into that trap, and we give people a lot more credit, I think, and I've watched this happen 3 times over the last year, because you're trying to fill a hole, you're at a point. Business, and then in this particular case, it was good. The business grew quickly for these people, and they didn't have someone in succession training, which is a whole nother topic. And he got kind of bamboozled on a couple before he got to the right person, and that's not cheap to do. So, and when you bring somebody on, for the love of Henry, know what they're going to do. Have a job description. Have outcomes. Have metrics. Don't start just, well, let's see, I don't want to do this, and you can do that, and I need a supervisor over here. Wait a minute, there's something 50 miles away, a round trip. No, build a job description, give them a book of business, make them accountable so they can see when they can succeed, and you can see when they produce, when they really create the outcomes you're looking for, and that can get you to quicker decision.
Let me throw this in. As far as the job descriptions go, I've had people that that kind of that stymied them. Like, well, what do I do? What do I put in here and stuff like that? And what I discovered is if you go to Indeed and look for the position, other people have done beautiful. Some of the international companies put together wonderful job descriptions. So don't neglect it because it may be too difficult, because it's not.
Open Doors, ZipRecruiter, all of them.
They all do, yeah.
Not only that, they will show you what that position's paying in your industry, and they'll have a whole description, and you can see a bell curve of who and how people are getting paid and what they're getting paid based on what they're doing. So again, we're in a high information age. You can make good decisions. We couldn't get any of that information when we hired.
No.
That didn't exist, but neither did these companies. So yeah, Ed, great point. Get out there and do a little due diligence and see what.
No excuse for not finding that. Between that and AI, there's no excuse for not finding what you want in job descriptions.
No, it's and knowing what it gets paid. That's no secret anymore.
Yes.
Knowing what, and I get back to what the market bears.
Right.
If you don't buy what the market bears, you're going to get substandard person. I guarantee you. After 50 years of doing this, if you're not paying what the market bears, unless you just get lucky. But I don't know if you guys agree, but if you're not paying market value, that's what you're going to get is below market value if you pay below market. And I can't afford that. Well, then I'm going back to this whole conversation as we wrap up. Then you can't afford to grow. then you
Right.
need to sit back down and reevaluate what and how you're doing. And that's why the three of us are in business. We've walked through all of this, the wars, the battles, the streams, the floods. We've done, doesn't make us special, might make us a little to the stupid side. We're still in this, but we're gluttons for punishment. We love the industry. But that's why, and if it isn't us, there's tons of people on LinkedIn and everywhere. There's no reason you can't get advice and figure this out if you're stuck. And I always promote SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. I was in it for 5 years. You can get advice that's beyond what we know or anybody you'd hire, and you get it for free. So SCORE. I mean, so there are ways that you can get this done. Do it and understand that it will cost you money. And I remember what I was going to bring on Sharon's point about the investment. An employee, when you're bringing someone in like this, in my mind, it's not an ROI you're looking at. You're looking at the ROO and the ROT. You're looking at what return on my time do I get for bringing this person in? When they're trained, now what can I do to build value and pull my company and push my company forward? Maybe I can start looking for another successor. There's a number of things. That's valuable because I'm not doing those today and they're coming undone. That's why I'm sitting here thumbing through the want ads. And then the other one's the return on the opportunity. With somebody building this business, what opportunities will it create for me tomorrow that I don't have today? So it isn't as much as just money. It is an ROI in my mind. It's a return on opportunity and it's a return on my time to develop my company and my team. Ed, you look.
What I was going to say was, look, I guess there's a warning here. Okay. And listen, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing in that first company. I mean, the whole damn thing was just a big mystery. Okay. No idea at all, but the first time I did have bring somebody in as a manager or promoted somebody. And the first time I did that, I had all this time on my hands.
And then what do you do?
Well, I was making money, had time on my hands. So I was drinking Chivas Regal 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was just one of those, it's one of those stupid things that young folks do. But, be careful when you got all this free time, And there was another one. There was a company that I dealt with, and it was the same situation, but it wasn't alcohol. He was chasing the cleaning women, chasing his staff, the girls on the, be careful. Be careful. That time is precious.
You have to know what you're going to do with the time. If you're bringing somebody on and you're going to have free time, what's the plan? What will you do with that? And Ed, to your point, I've fallen into the same trap. You get that time and you think you're going to do these things, and all of a sudden you take this mini vacation because you're beat, and the mini vacation turns into a sabbatical.
Right.
Turns into
nice way to put it.
Which turns into a lifestyle which doesn't move your company forward. So yeah. And so again, we're back to having a simple plan. Is on a napkin. It says, when I hire this person and they're in place, these things will be done. And while they're done, I'm going to go out and knock on doors, find a marketing person, market the company. I'm going to join these organizations. Because if you don't know what you're going to do with the time, believe me, you'll find time to waste and fill it in. We all do.
Then it's a waste of money.
And that's something to be fun, Ed. We didn't have the success a lot of people have, but we all had our fair share. And it's interesting what you do with it as you grow.
Well, the other thing is that, if you got good money for good liquor, that's it.
Yeah, back in the day, I got to give you, Chivas was okay, but the single malt had not come up with the cigars to go with it. That hadn't entered the marketplace yet. So there's some things for everybody to talk about, think about. If you're in a position, we hope you are, that you're looking for your next second or your next major person to run, whether it's the third or fourth or another general manager for an out-of-state area. Just some things to think about. And hopefully this will spur on some ideas about how to fund it, how to get there, when you should be thinking about it. But I think to wrap it up, you should always be thinking about it. You should always be building your next successor. And when you can, do it from within. My advice is always, if I can create them from within and have the time, that's where I want them to be. Because by the time you get there, we know each other. And we know that what was on the paper came out in actual results. And anybody got a last saying, and then we'll sign off.
Don't say that to old people, man. Don't say that.
Yeah, right.
Jeez.
That's like that. Well, somebody wanted to know what they got this horrible thing, and it was a celebration of life. I'm
Yeah.
dead. Please don't call it a celebration, except for a couple of ex-wives, you know.
Well, I guess we'll just leave that alone, and we'll thank Ed for those
Yeah.
lovely thoughts. And with that, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, wherever fine podcasts are posted. We're there trying to get our share of the listeners. So
And
look us up and find us. Take
subscribe.
care.
Yeah.
Subscribe, yeah.